Okay, so basically why we do prototype is to help the developers understand, right? Okay, how the flow is going to be, how the interactions are going to be, and sometimes we don't like have the time to go through the entire flow and make them understand each flow, and it is not that they're going to remember each and every screen, right? Since we have designed it for 3-6 months, we know each and every screen, we know each and every button, but developers, when you hand off the design, they might not be that familiar with the screen. So what we do is we generally do a minimal prototyping to show the flow of the screens, and we sometimes also do interactions, like how what kind of interaction is going to be and how it is going to work, right? So right now I have a design file. If anybody wants to try, I'm just sharing the link of this file. You can just copy the design from here, so you can just try with me. So we have all the time, we can wait and figure it out. Okay, so just anybody wants to come and hop on the file, copy the designs and copy it on your Figma and just try with me. That is fine. Alright. Okay, so let's just get started. So what we are going to do is, firstly we are going to start from very basic. So we are going to see how actually prototype works, right? So right now what you see on the right corner is that you see three tabs. We have the design, we have the prototype, and then we have the inspect, right? So this is the prototype how the prototype layout looks like. So when you select a particular screen, you will see that there is a flow starting point. So this starting point is the place where whenever you hit the presentation button on the top, that is the play button that you see here. Whenever you hit that, what you will see is that it starts the presentation from the very that point. And this arrow that shows flow 1 and the arrow, this is the indication that this is where the flow is going to start with, right? So, and the second thing is to add an interaction, and third thing is to have an overflow interaction, and we're going to see in detail like how everything works, right? So right now what we want to do is we want to do a very basic tap interaction. So right now we have a screen where we have this different events in card format, right? And what we want is when we tap on this particular screen, it should kind of open a larger view of the image on the next screen, and at the same time I should be able to cross in and come back, right? So what I will do is I just select that particular image and we will go to prototype. And once we go to the prototype tab, like right now I am on the design tab, and you can see that I cannot see any anchor points, or I cannot see any nodes right now, right? So once I trigger prototype, what you will see is that once I hover upon that particular image, you will see one anchor point with a plus icon. So this is where you have to like just click and drag so that you get a arrow flow, and you just connect it to the next screen that you want to the follow screen to be. So I'll just do that again. So I'll just go there, click upon that node and just drag it to the next screen, right? Once I drag it to the next screen, I'll see our interaction details screen, right? So let's divide this particular interaction detail screen into two parts. So on the top we have the trigger point, like how this action is going to be triggered. So I of course want to go to the next screen, but there are multiple ways to do that, right? You can tap on something, you can also kind of swipe right, swipe left to go to next screen, or maybe to the next follow-up screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say on click, because I just want a very basic action that when I click upon this particular image, I want the next thing to show up, right? And next it shows where this screen is going to navigate to. So since right now we have already connected it with the arrow, we are already seeing that this particular screen is navigating to the expand screen, the second screen that we have, right? So firstly we have this image, we have the arrow, and it is navigating to the expand screen. So this works as a drop down, so you can also select the second screen that you want the follow screen to be, right? So if I select something else, it is going to just connect that arrow to that particular screen, right? But right now we just want it to go to the expand screen where we see expanded view of the particular image, right? And below that is the animation. This is going to decide how soft or how harsh is going to be our animation, right? So there are multiple parameters by which we are going to decide how that animation is going to look. So that could be very smooth, that could be very slow, that could be very fast. So there are multiple options there, and we are going to configure it in some time. But right now I just want you to focus upon that. Right now when we click upon this particular image, it is going to show an expanded view of it, right? So I'll just click on it. It is going to navigate to expand, and I am not going to do smart animate. I am just going to do instant because we just want to keep it basic. So now I'm just going to hit the present button. So technically, since this is the first prototype, first screen, so this is where the prototype should start with. Okay. So right now, if you can see, since I have added a tab interaction on this, whenever I hover upon this, you will see that the cursor changes to a pointed icon, right? And apart from this, what you can also do is to know which all things are kind of prototyped in this particular screen. You can just click anywhere outside, and it will highlight the thing that in blue that is already prototype. So once I click upon this, you will see that I'm going to the next screen, right? So this is kind of very basic. Once I click upon it, it is just opening the next screen. But it's not that smooth, right? It just feels like I'm just moving to next screen without any interaction, without any flow. There is no smoothness around. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to click upon that arrow again. And instead of instant, I'm going to go to dissolve. Now what dissolve does is, it adds an fade in, fade out effect. Right? I'll just click on dissolve, and I'm going back again, and when I click upon it, you see that there is a fade in effect. Just play that again. Right? So different, like I said, the smoothness is going to totally depend upon how the animation properties are. This top part is only about how is that is going to be triggered. It is going to be triggered on click, on drag, or while hovering, right? But the main characteristic, that how smooth it is going to be, totally depends upon this particular parameter, that how smooth it is, and what are the properties, what is the speed and everything. So instead of dissolve, let me go to smart animate, right? And once I go to smart animate, you will see that it's get even more smoother, because Figma has a property where it kind of checks similar frames and then add animations to it. Like, it is smart enough to do that, right? So once I click upon it, you see it kind of appearing with a slight animation, right? I'll just do that again, right? So it's kind of appearing with that small, it just feels like it's growing from smaller to a bigger image. And apart from that, what we can do is, of course we can smart animate, but also we have the option to move in and move out. So what this does is, it kind of shows in that this image is kind of moving in from the right. You will also see a preview that how the animation is going to work. So right now what we see is, it is kind of moving from the right of the screen towards the screen. So let's just trigger that again. You see, now it starts coming from the right. Alright. So there are multiple like properties there. So if you want to this to come from the left, it will you just click on this arrow, and if you want to this to appear from the right of the screen, you just click upon this arrow, right? And if you see right now, if I go back and I click again, it is coming from the other side of the screen. Alright. Similarly, if you want it to come from the top, you just go there, click upon the down toggle here, and once you click upon it, it will start coming from the top. Right? So it is so helpful when you are designing notification tabs and everything, because notification normally triggers from the top of the screen. Right? So next, moving to, I also want that once I am on this screen, I am also able to like trigger back to that screen, right? So I'll just select this, and I'll connect it to the previous screen. Now the flow one is coming here, so I just move it to the first screen, so that or every time I play this animation, it's going to start from this screen, right? So let's just say start. You can just rename it any way you want. So if there are multiple flows, like there is a flow for search, there is a flow for maybe opening an image and everything. So I just make different start points, right? So suppose this is a search flow, I will just add another flow starting point and name it search. How will this work? Like if I go to this particular tab and once I go to the presentation and click upon show menu, it is going to show two different start points. So if I go to start, it is going to show me that screen, and if I go to search, it is going to show me the other screen, right? Coming back, so right now we have just added an interaction where once I click upon the cross icon, it should go back to the previous screen, right? So it should technically work that way. So let's just see. Okay, this screen comes up. So when I just hover over the X icon, it kind of changes into a pointer, and once I click upon it, then again it's coming from the top. But we don't want that, right? We don't want the scroll interaction from moving interaction. So we will just move to dissolve, and similarly for that cross icon and going back to the previous screen, we'll again move to dissolve. Let's just trigger that animation again. So if you see, it's working, right? So right now if you see, it's working quite slow. So what we are going to do, we are going to pace up the animation. So to pace up the sorry, to pace up the animation, you have to kind of tweak the milliseconds timer here, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move it to 300 milliseconds, and similarly for the close or to move back to previous screen, I'm going to move it to 300 milliseconds, right? And if I go back and I do it again, it's faster compared to what it was happening, right? So this is a basic tab interaction. So everything is happening on tab. You don't like this has nothing complex to it. This is just most basic interaction that you'll see, right? Okay, so this was the click interaction. Anybody who has any questions around it? Like, I think this is pretty simple, but still.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
This is Ram here. Actually, I joined this 10 minutes later. So, can you give me an overview? What was the first 10 minutes you were?
Yeah, so basically, Rama, firstly, welcome. And so, actually, we were just started actually, and we were doing some basic interaction. So right now we are focusing upon the tab interaction. So this is the most basic interaction that you will see. So once you select a particular element upon your screen, you go and add an interaction, and you will see that it's the most basic click interaction. So once you click upon it, it should kind of go to the next screen, right? So once you hover upon it, you will see that there is a node icon. You'll just have to connect it to the screen that is the follow-up screen, and you'll have your interaction there. So right now we have just covered this, and of course going from that screen to the previous screen. That's it. Okay. So now we are going to try something complex. Okay. Now if you have seen, there is always a drag interaction, right? So the drag,
Sorry to interrupt, just a minor doubt. So when you're saying like easing in and easing out, right? So there must be a duration which would feel like long on typically any app, and then something would feel very short. So like in practice, like what is the time that we mostly use? Is it like 300 milliseconds for easing in and out for mobile apps, or
yeah, normally you want the user to see the feedback in under 300 milliseconds, right? If it is longer than that, then normally people think that their internet is not working or something, right? So normal practice is to keep it below 300 milliseconds. So the
another related question was when you're saying, right, that when you tap on a screen in prototype mode, it will show you like which all things are clickable, like Figma will show you.
Yeah.
But when we hand that over to developers, like how is that communicated? Like do they already know where they have to click, or we provide them steps?
Yeah, normally we do give a technical documentation how the follow-up screen is going to be. Otherwise, they are going to see this particular screen, right? So they normally, the view that we have right now is the same view that the developer is going to have.
Okay, so they themselves can also figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So now I'm moving to the drag interaction. So what we want is, let me just place the screen side by side. Have a better view. Wait. Okay. So what we want is, once we move this particular screen to the left, we want two icons to show up. That is a delete and the archive icon, right? So we are going to drag this left and this particular icon, two icons to show up. So what we are going to do again, since we want to animate this particular item, we are just going to click upon it. Okay. So we are just going to click upon it, and we are again going to add an interaction. So we will search for the node and we'll connect the node to the next screen, right? And instead of click right now, what we want is, we want the interaction to be on drag. So we are going to just tap on the drag, just select drag from the drop down, and the parameters are already set, navigate to event media, because we have already connected with a node. But if we did not connect it with a node, what we could do is we could just select this add the interaction. Instead of on click, we will have on drag. We want the navigation to go to event media, right? So we are just going to search for that screen and just click upon it. So this is also a way, but this is a longer process. So we'll just search for the node and we are going to connect it with the next screen. And we want it to be on drag. Now, once we drag it, I'm right now keeping it to smart animate. Reason being, firstly it's a drag interaction and I want the transition to be very smooth, right? So I'm just going with smart animate so that the Figma matches the layer and kind of creates a smoother experience. And next thing I'm going to do is choose the easy the property that is going to decide how smooth it is going to be. So this second property is going to decide what will be the motion curve, what the motion curve will look like. And these are some presets, right? Ease in, ease out, ease in and out, ease in back, ease out back. So these are just kind of basic presets that you can use. You can also have gentle, quick, bouncy and slow, right? So just to attain what like the speed of interaction and smoothness, you can just choose this preset, or you can just go to the custom preset and set your own curve. So this is going to decide how smooth the interaction is going to be. Right now I'm going with ease in and out, since this is the like smoothest property that I've seen until now, right? And the timer is 300 milliseconds. So should I just go ahead and play this? Alright, so technically once I drag it to the left, again it shows this highlighted because this is kind of prototype. So if I move this left, the delete and the archive icon should show up, right? And if I drag it back, it is going to hide. So this is how simple the like the drag interaction works with, right? But right now if you see, it's kind of appearing really fast. It does not it's not feels like a transition. So what we are going to do is we are going to add another layer to it. So we will just select these two icons, we'll copy it and we are going to paste it on this particular screen, right? And once we place it, we are going to send it to the back. Right now it is all there. Let me just show you that it's there, but it's at the back, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the opacity 0, because I want that this icon should not feel like it's already there. It should feel like it is appearing, right? And we are going to make it shorter, so it feels like it is kind of zooming in when it is dragged. So let me go back. It's already prototype. So right now, let me check. Okay, the screen already has some properties to it. Okay, this has. Let's go back. Okay, let's just go back and restart the animation. You see the difference right now. So it's smaller at the background, but when you drag it, it's kind of appearing with full opacity. So this is how smooth the interaction could get. It's just that you have to just get used to the overall prototyping scene, and you just have to know what kind of interaction could bring in what kind of effect, right? So just a simple interaction of a drag, and what we did was just made this icon smaller, and on the next screen we just made it bigger and with full opacity. So it just gives an effect that this icons are expanding and appearing, right? So this is a simple drag interaction that you will normally see these on mails. So when you go to Gmail and you swipe left, you will see that you have the option to delete that particular mail, right? And similar with Instagram messages and so on. And even in your mobile contacts, if you drag your contact or the last call to the left, you will have the option to delete it. So this is how simply you can achieve it right now. Okay, so this was the drag interaction. Any questions around this?
Sumit, can you just repeat how you did the resizing once? Just repeat.
Sure, I'll just do that again.
Yes.
Okay, so what we want is on this particular screen we don't have anything. We just have the card. We don't have anything behind it, right? And on the next screen, what we want is this card to move towards the left and these two icons to show up, and that is working perfectly fine. But then we want to make the transition even more smoother. So we just copy these two icons from this particular screen and paste it on the first screen. That is the first view that we have. The first view is having the card full view, right? It's not moving towards the left. And then we are going to move it towards the back. Since we want it to appear from the back of the card, we are just going to move it towards the back. In fact, before that, let me just make the size smaller. So I'm going to just decrease the size, and I'm going to just place it back where it was. This is an auto layout. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the opacity to 0. Right? So right now the opacity is 0 and the size has decreased. So what technically should happen is, once I move this card towards the left, the icons are already there, right? But the opacity is 0, so you cannot see it. So once you move it towards the left, these two icons would like kind of show up. So let's just go to the prototype, restart, and so if you drag it towards the left, the icons start appearing. Like initially they are smaller, but once you move towards the left, the opacity gets to 100 and start appearing. Okay? This is kind of a micro interaction that you want to add when some small elements are moving in the screen. Are we good with this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now we want to move to overlays. So okay, before moving to overlays, let's just do one thing. Let's just try vertical and horizontal scrolling. So if you see on Instagram stories, you would have seen that you can scroll the stories towards the left, right? And we want to attain something similar. So what we are going to do is, since these are right now independent elements, right? So we are going to select all of these. So to select all of these, you have to select the first one, then hold your shift key, select the second one and the third one, and on the right click you are going to frame this selection, right? So right now, instead of grouping this selection, I have just framed this selection, right? There are two things that you can use to couple elements together. It's either group or it's going to be frame, and mostly I go with frame. So I am just going to select this frame. And right now, what if you see? Yep, sure. We are just waiting for the answer. Okay, he'll rejoin. So okay, coming back to it. So just repeating what I just said. So I just select this element. You have to hold the shift key, select the element that you want to couple together, and just click upon frame selection, right? So once you frame the selection, what you will see is you'll see that it's spilling right now, right? So this element is kind of moving outside of the frame, since it's the width is more than what we have the frame of, right? So we are just going to select this. What we are going to do is we're going to keep the frame size only up till the margin of the screen, right? So right now we have the frame size just at the border of this screen, and again we are going to now clip content. If you don't know how clip content work is, if you have overflowing elements on your screen, you can just go and clip content so that you don't see the overflowing element. That's it. There is an overflowing element at the bottom, that is the cards, and there is an overflowing element at the top, right? So we are just going to clip content. We have that there, and right now what we want is, we want this to move towards the left, right? So we are going to just select that frame, again go to prototype, and below that you will see overflow scroll. So every overflowing element on the screen is going to be interacted through this particular toggle. We are not going to interaction and adding a click prototype, right? We are just not doing that. We are just going on the overflow scrolling, and we want this to flow horizontally. So we are going to choose horizontal scrolling. Fine. So let's just present this prototype. So technically this is prototyped. Okay. Right. So if you see right now, if you drag it towards the left, you will see that stories kind of interaction from Instagram. So this is how simple the horizontal scrolling works. You just have to, again I'll just do that again. So you just have to put things in a frame. Make sure that the frame sorry, is in edge of that particular screen that you have chosen, and the overflowing element is still outside the screen, but I have just clipped the content. And on the prototype, you are going to overflow scroll and just going to choose horizontal scrolling, right? And if you go back, you will see that it works. Similar thing with the vertical scrolling. Once you go on somebody's feed, like you will see that on Instagram you can just scroll endlessly, right? So I'm just going to remove the clipping so that you can see there are two particular posts. So what we did for this, we are going to do the same for this one as well. So we are going to put this in a frame first, and like I said, the frame edge should be at the border of the bottom nav here, like we had the frame edge at the right corner, right edge here. So we are going to put it just meet the border of the bottom navigation, and again we are going to just clip content. Okay, right now what we want to do is we want to go to the prototype, and again we are adding a overflow scrolling, but we are kind of adding a vertical scrolling. Right now we don't want it to go horizontally, we want it to go vertically. I'll shoot the prototype again, and right now if you see, it's scrolling towards the top, but the problem is it's kind of overflowing over the top section of the application. So what I'm going to do is again go back to this, and I'm going to choose clip content. Right now I haven't chosen clip content, so what is happening is once it goes to the top, it is not trimming the element, it is just showing as it is. So I'm just going to clip the content, go back to the design, and if you see, the top part is now fixed and the bottom part is scrolling. Right? This is how you attain the vertical scrolling on this. So these two interaction I think you will use a lot, because right now it's quite common among all the applications. So these two are very basic. Just go on that, go to prototype, make sure that overflow is correct, that is horizontal vertical scrolling, and sometimes you have both, so you have to choose both options, right? Okay, this is fine. I think this was pretty simple, right? Just few clicks and you achieve such a great interaction on Figma. Right now, next thing that we want to do is do overflow interaction. So what happens is normally when you have seen this three dots on many applications, right? What happens when you click upon it? You see that a drop down or you see a list that appears. So we are going to do something similar. So what we want is once I click upon this particular three dots, I want this list to show up just below that, right? But I don't want that to always be on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to prototype that. So I'll just select that particular element. So I just want to go to the prototype, search for the node, and I'm going to connect this with the list that we have on the top, right? Right now we don't want to go to on click or on drag. We just want to, okay, we want to go to on click because this trigger is going to happen only when you tap upon it, right? And we are going to dissolve. Done is correct. Okay, we are going to, instead of going to navigate to, we are going to open overlay, right? Once you click upon open overlay, it will automatically show you that it is now coming on the screen, but the positioning is not correct. So we want to just tweak the positioning a little. So what we can do is we can select, do we want it in the center or do we want to set it manually? So I want to set it manually. So I'll just go to the drop down, choose manual, and I can now drag it to the position that I want to. So I just want it to appear here, right? So let's just run the prototype one. So I'm just moving this start point to this so that the presentation triggers from this particular screen, right? So technically if I click upon this, list should appear, right? And it is appearing at the position where we selected. But you can also have some presets. So like I showed you, you already have that in the center top left. So in websites normally what happens is when you see a pop-up, it kind of comes in the center of the screen. So you can select it from, like you have some presets here which you can select. Now what you want is there are two checks here. So what does these do? So you want, normally these pop-ups close when a user taps anywhere on the screen, right? So right now if you see, if I click upon this and I click anywhere outside, it is not closing. So this check mark is to do that particular thing. So once you click upon that close when clicking outside, you'll just go to the prototype, click anywhere outside and close it, right? And sometimes you will see that when the pop-ups comes up, you will see a black tint at the background. So I'll just add that black tint. So you can also change the color, but I'm right now adding it black, or should I make it white? I'll just make it white so it's more visible. So if I go back, I click upon this, you'll see that there is a black background behind, right? Or white background behind. So these are some presets that you can use, and it makes our job pretty simple, right? You can have just basic interactions working really well. So this was the overlay. Any doubts upon this or the vertical and the horizontal scroll? Anyone? If not, I'm going to move forward.
Sumit, can you make that more option even more smoother?
View more option.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Actually, that while trying that open overlay, it's like not as smooth as we use in our apps. So is it possible?
Okay, for that you can make it like choose different properties. So I'm going like if you choose gentle, it is going to get smoother. So if I just select this, you see the transition is quite smooth. But then the timing is a lot. Like we have around 800 ms, so we are going to kind of decrease that. Right. And apart from that, you can also add other interaction. So let me just remove the background color and all this there. And suppose we want it to be slow, right? So different properties, different presets, or adding your own properties to the curve will kind of add that smoothness. So this is where you like tweak the smoothness of the entire application. You can even make it bouncy if you want. So it will add a bounce effect to it. Okay. So that is the point where you add all the smoothness and add everything there. Are we good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are going to do something interesting. We are going to do a hover effect. So hover is basically whenever I go to a particular screen, okay, let me see if this is playing. Great. So what I want to achieve is once I hover over a particular screen, I want the user to get a feedback that this particular button is active, right? So normally we add that hover effect, so show the user that you can click on this particular screen and it will be you can click upon this button, it is an active button. So what I want to achieve is once I hover over it, I want the button to have a fill effect. Right now it has a stroke and it has an eclipse at the very right end, but on hover I want this interaction, right? So what I'm going to do is, this is where interactive components come into play, and this is where it gets a little complex. So what is interactive components exactly? So right now we were moving from screen to screen, right? You click upon one screen, you go to other screen, but sometimes we want the interaction to take place within that particular screen itself. And in that case, we are going to use interactive components. So we are going to, I just have here two variants of the same button, right? So what you will see, it says open dashboard, but it has a stroke, and the second one has a fill, right? And this fill, how did this fill come? So let me go to design. So this was the eclipse that we have here, and we kind of expanded that towards the very end and filled the entire button, right? And what we are going to do is we are going to select both of this. So either you can just drag and select, or you can hold shift and select both. And what we are going to do is we are going to create a component set, right? If you haven't worked in components and variants, no need to worry, like this is the only function that we are going to use. So again, doing it again, just select both the variations, go to the drop down on the top and just choose create component set. And then again we are going to go to the prototype, we are going to select this button and we are going to connect it with the next button. And what we want is, we don't want a click or a drag interaction, we want a hovering interaction, right? Whenever we hover the mouse over it, we see that interaction. So we'll just choose while hovering, and instead of dissolve we will choose smart animate, right? And the effect is going to be ease in and out, and we have 300 milliseconds. So you see this is right now a component. So we are going to go to the assets panel on the left. So there are two panels on the left, one is the layers and the second one is the assets. So we are going to go to the assets, we are going to search for this component. So this is called button hover, right? And we are just going to drop it on the screen. So I just want it to be placed here, right? And once I play it again, you see I have attained that interaction. So this is how interactive components work. You want the interaction to happen in the same screen, but you create the variant separately, and then you make a group it in a component, and then you add the interaction like you did for previous like interaction. It's kind of similar, right? Anybody who's confused with this, like this is a little complex, I know, but any confusions around this? No? Okay. So this was the basic interaction.
Smith,
Yeah.
sorry, one question. When we're creating a component set, can the two components be of slightly different sizes? Like if I want to extend a button completely, can they be of different sizes?
Yeah, that can be of different sizes, but then the interaction is going to look like that. Like you will see the button size changing.
Got it, got it.
Yeah, and since you mentioned that, a very important point. So what Figma does is it kind of animates similar layers, right? So if you see, this circle is right now named REC rectangle, right? I just shortened the rectangle. This is actually a rectangle. I just kept the radius to full, I think 100 or something. Yeah, 100. So the radius is full, so it looks like a circle. And then what I'm doing is I'm expanding that same layer element, that is the rec, and I'm kept the naming same. If the naming is different, so if I add it rec1, it might, you see it is not working. Because here the Figma is not able to understand if those are both are same layers, right? So we have to make sure that the naming of the component is correct. So we are using the same name for both these variations. You go back, it's working again, right? So this is something that you have to be really careful about, especially when you are working with, like right now we only have a button, but once it gets complicated, it will get really complicated then. Because there will be a lot of layers, there will be different names, and you want to keep it same on all the screen, right? So we are going to do something similar right now. We are going to again do the same thing. So we are going to select both, like these are the two default, like have you seen a drop down list? Whenever you hover upon it, it gets a little darker, right? And we are going to create the same effect. So these two rectangles, I am just going to select both. Let me detach this component. Okay. Again, I'll select both, go to the drop down, again create a component set. Add a prototype interaction. So I'll just select the node, move it to the next variation. I don't want it on click, I want it on hover. And on hover, I have chosen smart animate so that the Figma is itself able to match these two and create an animation, right? And I choose ease in and out, right? And now this component name is drop down. So I'll just go back, I'll search drop down. You see the default one. I'm just creating multiple of these so that it looks like a drop down. And I just added an auto layout, and I'm just going to add some padding so it looks like a list, right? And then I'm going to, okay, let me just decrease it, it's way too much. And I'm going to add some fill in the background. So right now it looks like a drop down. I'm just going to add some various, right? Now I'll just create a test frame. So a test frame is when you want to, like this drop down can be part of a bigger dashboard, right? And I just want to test how this drop down is working. So I just create a test frame there. Place the drop down at the center. And let me just play this. Sorry. So technically once I hover upon it, it should show a darker version, right? You see, the hover effect upon a drop down that could be achieved by, again, with interactive component, but the catch is that you need to know how to use that in like how to club those together and make sure that it's smooth, right? Once you move from one to another. Right. Are we good with this drop down? Yeah. Okay. So interactive once you master interactive components, you will be able to achieve way more things than you can imagine, like Figma is capable of, right? So I'm just going to show you one final interaction, and then we can, like, I'm open for questions. This is something that I want you guys to try. Like, this is a day and night interaction. So if you guys can try this, it would be great. If you achieve it, like always, like if you try something new and it's coming out well, always share it on social media, because even though like I am self-taught, right, I haven't taken any design courses, but the first job that I got was because of an animation that I shared. Otherwise I was not even getting my first job. So I shared that on LinkedIn, and people reached out who wanted somebody who also knows how to prototype and animate. So always share in public, whatever you are building, share on public, tag people, make sure people you already know, they see it, they interact with the post, so that it reaches more people, and the chances of getting hired, chances of getting better roles chances of getting the visibility is quite more when you build in public, right? Okay, coming to the next part. So you see there is a darker version of the app and there is a lighter version, and I just want an animation where this moves, like kind of switches to the lighter version just on tap or after some time, right? So I'm just going to copy this. This is a frame, like this is a proper frame, this everything is there, all the elements are there. So I have just created an image of it, okay, just to show the interaction. So this is the image, and I'm going to create an image of this as well, and I'm going to paste it there. Let me just decrease the size. Okay, so these are two images. I'm going to turn this into a frame and I'm going to name this home screen. What I want is that I want this particular effect to fade out and the lighter version to show up. So I'm just going to create a rectangle. Okay, this is where I'm using masking as an effect. So once the marks like kind of move down, I see the next lighter version, and I'm just going to move it a little higher so that it's just outside of the screen, and I'm going to add a little curve to it so that it looks like the liquid flow, that the colors are coming down, something like that. So I'm just going to create a curve. This is the pen tool in Figma. We don't want the outside to be smooth, so I'm just going to select anything. Okay, we are done. We are going to add a fill to it just to see how the selection is. Make it darker, right? And then what we are going to do is we want this rectangle to have that curve, so I'm going to just subtract this selection. So on the top at the most right corner you have different option to kind of merge two vectors, or to have different intersections if needed. So I'm just going to subtract it. So right now it shows a curve on the top, right? Now I'll just place it here, make it a little bigger, right? And I'm going to use a mask. So I'm going to just say use as mask. So of course right now it looks like it was. I'm going to move it to this screen. What I want is once the transition happens, I want this subtraction, like I want this effect, that it should look like the water is flowing down and the colors are changing to the lighter mode, right? So I just want this effect. So what I'm doing is in the marks layer I'm taking that subtraction that I created, right, and I'm moving it down to the very end of the frame and just moving it out of the frame. I'm just holding the down key to move it out, right? And what should the prototype be, right? So I'm just going to select the screen, go to prototype. Just give me a second. The home screen. I'm just going to take the node, connect it to the next screen. So I want this to happen after delay. So how does after delay work? You add a certain timing to it, that this is going to take place only after waiting for this many seconds, right? So I'm just going to add 800 ms. Again, smart animate, so that Figma is able to like fetch the layers and animate it. So I'm just going to trigger print. Okay, right now it's happening really fast. Let me just replay it. Okay, just give me 1 second. Just remove this interaction. We just want one interaction on the screen. Okay. Just select home screen. This is happening really fast, so I'm just going to go again back to the after delay property. This is 300 ms. I want it to be slow. Move it to 800 ms. Let me push present again. Since I'm masking and everything, the presentation gets heavier, so it takes more time to load. You see? So there is a lot of things that you can achieve once you have a good control over everything. So like I said, once you have a good control over variants, once you have good control over masking, you can achieve this is I'm telling you is way too basic. Like once you go, like you are into prototyping for a really long time, you are going to achieve much more than this, right? Okay, so this was it. We just to show you what we have covered. So we have covered on click, on drag, on hovering. Mouse enter and mouse leave are something that is not used much. So this is something that I'm not covering, but maybe in future videos I'll cover. So right now I'm just covering on click, on drag, on hovering, right? And apart from that, we have covered navigation, navigate to, and then we have covered open overlay, and below that we have covered different kind of animation, that is say instant is all smart animate, move in and move out. Okay. So any questions around this or anything that I can help you with? How was the session? Was it good? Was it informative?
Hi, Sumit.
Hey, hi Rama.
Actually, the web design you showed is amazing. So, can you show me the design and the blur effect and the colors are quite engaging?
Okay, so what I've done, I'll show you how I have layered it. So I cannot show you the design because like this is an image and the main design is in a different file, which is but I'll show you how I have layered it.
Okay.
So these two are proper 3D shapes. So these are in blood layers. These are actually proper 3D shapes that you will find in community or you will find in 3D assets, right? And so if you take a 3D object, suppose I am taking a circle maybe, and I just add a linear effect to it. Right. So this is an object. So I just want to add, I have a blur effect. So I'll just go to effects, I'll go to layer blur, and I'll just move it to like 20. You see, you'll get the blur. Right. So I have done something similar with those two objects, and on top of that there is another layer which has a glass effect on it. Right. So you select a layer, put it on top of that particular layer, add white, go to effect, add a background blur, increase the percentage, and then you want to decrease the opacity. So let me just keep it 20. You see, you're getting that effect. So this is how that is done. Otherwise everything is text, and so mostly use of layer blur and background blur.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Anything? So do give an attempt on creating that dark and the light mode, like the moon and the sun and the moon effect, right? And if you are able to create, do share on your social media so that I can like have a look, or do share with me on LinkedIn or somewhere. I have shared the Figma file link on the chat, so you can like if you want something from this particular file, you can take it, not a problem. Okay, if nobody has any more doubts, we will be signing out for today.
Thanks a lot, Sumit.
Thank you, Abhi. Thank you, Vanishri. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you. Thank you, Rama.